Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. We're coming to you live from the Singapore Fintech Festival, and joining me for this segment, we have Nehaa Mehtaa. She is the Regional Lead Pacific for the UN Capital Development Fund, and we're going to talk about how Fintech is creating accessibility for all, particularly for SMEs, and supporting women and their entrepreneurship initiatives as well. It's great to have you with us, Nehaa. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Jill.
And one theme that I've been seeing around Singapore Fintech Festival is around that of inclusivity and developing those models to support SMEs. Give us some background behind that.
So like you said, being inclusive, going to the last mile is very important, and this is one of the sustainable goals that we work towards. And at UNCDF, we want to make sure that we bring in private capital and go hand in hand with them through blended finance solutions to help the SMEs and especially the women entrepreneurs. So the work we are doing in the Pacific region is particularly important because Pacific Islanders were worst hit with COVID. And now is the time that we want them to bounce back. And with this in mind, we're trying to bring up sustainable solutions and innovative solutions, because this is a time when we can leapfrog using tech as a force of good, so that we can reach more people at a lesser cost and have greater impact.
What are some ways that FinTech is enabling these solutions to happen?
So just to give an example, when we talk about countries like PNG, Samoa, Tonga, in most of these countries, SMEs don't really have the habit of putting together the transaction data. They don't have a collateral to begin with, and women oftentimes don't have an asset in their name. It would be in the name of their husband or a father. And at the same time, banks don't really have solutions that are applicable for these SMEs. And we're talking about small SMEs that are running some stalls, some pastry shops, and banks are very risk averse when it comes to lending to SMEs. So how can we make this process easier? It could be done by way of, let's say, doing an equity crowdfunding platforms, and this in simple words means that we are going without having fixed lines, mobile phones, straight to having a smartphone. And that kind of leapfrogging process is enabled through FinTech, because we are talking about how we can collect data through alternative credit sourcing mechanisms, and the decision-making process becomes easier. So people who don't have any kind of credit history or a digital history to begin with, how can we assist them and monetize on that data to give them loans quicker and easily.
So really, the mobile phone is what propelled FinTech and all these different cross-border payment applications that are available now.
Absolutely, you're right. So just to give an example, the work we do in Fiji market is very relevant, because during COVID we saw a lot of Fijian went out of the country to work as seasonal workers, and these people were hoping to send back money, and they didn't have any mechanism through mobile channels. So through the work we did with Vodafone, we were able to send across, enable these cross corridors with Fiji, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and this money could the money transfer could take place quickly and much cheaper.
Right, well, it's more efficient and it gets to where it needs to go, which is really important when you're relying on someone else, a family member, to help support not only the household, but it really is a big contributor to the GDP and local economies as well, this foreign money coming back into the country. So my question to you is, are you starting to see more government and private enterprise partnerships to help build out the FinTech space to support SMEs?
Absolutely. So going back to the COVID point, I think COVID has been an accelerator for the offline to online journey. And we have gotten to realize that if you want to go far, collaboration is the key, whether it's about government and industry, whether it's about banks and fintechs. So only when we join hands, we can create a bigger impact. And I think at UNCDF, we're doing the same through our agenda of reaching the last mile, leaving no one behind, by bringing the private and the public capital together by blended finance solutions. And I think government across the Pacific Island is also getting to realize the power of doing it together. So we make sure we bring everyone, all the stakeholders in one room, and have a conversation on how we can make these processes frictionless and bring the cost down and get to the end customer quickly.
I mean, you would think government and private enterprise would be incentivized to do this, because we know how much SMEs contribute to local economies and to GDP. Are we still in very early stages? Is there any way to quantify the success yet?
As you can imagine, Jill, at any UN agency, it's very important for us to measure impact and make sure that we do what we promise to deliver. But at the same time, we need to keep in mind that we're talking about economies and islands which are very isolated.
Right.
So much so that they don't really have mobile connectivity sometimes, there are power cuts, and usually in the time that we are right now in November, all these Pacific Island countries are prone to natural disasters. So I think sometimes the focus shifts on making sure that we make them resilient communities,
right.
and the impact definitely comes through over a period of, let's say, 2 years or 5 years span of time, but it's a gratifying feeling when you see a lot of women entrepreneurs going offline to online, having their Facebook presence, doing business on e-commerce platforms. So all this is taking place through the work that we are doing with the local governments and central banks.
Certainly encouraging to hear. Appreciate the insight, Neha. Thanks for joining
Jill.
us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me at the Singapore Fintech Festival. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.